A very good morning to everyone joining us here on the 10th day of the first ever National Sports Vision Conclave मौली संवाद के 10वें दिन पे आप सभी का स्वागत है। बहुत सारे यंग स्टूडेंट्स को मैं देख सकती हूँ। कौन सी स्कूल से हो आप लोग? A big round of applause to yourself and your school, please. Please तालियां बजाइए। सुबह आप सभी आ गए। वहाँ पे भी देख सकती हूँ मैं कि काफ़ी young school children हैं, and also to the teachers who have joined us for this conversation. A big welcome, a warm welcome to you all. We have three very important and highly insightful sessions lined up for the day, and I am personally looking forward to all three because they are all likely to be blockbusters, shedding light on a wide array of subjects such as sports science, menstruation and gender, and of course image consultation when it comes to dealing with athletes. The first session of the day is called The Science Behind a Successful Season, Role of Sports Medicine in Athletes Planning Their Season. It's an important subject, काफ़ी important एक बात पे, एक विषय पे discussion होगी क्योंकि athletes की ज़िंदगी में प्लानिंग बहुत ही इम्पॉर्टेंट एक हिस्सा होता है और उस प्लानिंग को करने के लिए बहुत सारे स्टेक होल्डर्स, बहुत डिफरेंट तरीके के कोलैबोरेटर्स के साथ काम करना is very important. And keeping that in mind, our organizers here at the 38th National Games Uttarakhand 2025 have put together a panel comprising two key cogs in India's sporting wheel. First up, if I may call on stage to a rousing round of applause, please, Ms. Neha Agarwal Sharma, Olympian in table tennis and now a Chief Partnerships Officer at the Olympic Gold Quest. बहुत स्वागत है आपका नेहा। And नेहा को join करेंगी is stage पे Ms. ख्याति वखारिया, Dr. ख्याति वखारिया, sports medicine specialist and a former national level pole vault champion. We'll be talking about the science behind charting out a successful season for an athlete, and I've been entrusted with the responsibility of moderating this session. So without further ado, I will join the two ladies who I have been speaking to for some time, and I can tell you they have a wealth of experience to share. तो ध्यान से सुनिए और जो कुछ सीख मिलेगी उस सीख के बारे में भी हम आपसे बात करेंगे क्योंकि सेशन के बाद एक छोटा सा क्वेश्चन आंसर सेशन होगा। तो अगर आप लोगों के पास कोई सवाल होते प्लीज़ हमें पूछिए, ठीक है? ऑलराइट। Right, then we have set the platform for this conversation. दो former athletes जिन्होंने इंडिया का नाम रोशन किया है, अभी they are donning slightly different hats. They are preparing the next generation of athletes. Let's dive into the topic straight away, starting with Neha first up. The science behind a successful season. ये जो सब्जेक्ट हमें दिया गया है आज डिस्कस करने के लिए ऑन अ ब्राइट संडे मॉर्निंग इन देहरादून, इसको आप कैसे डिकंस्ट्रक्ट करोगे? लेट्स स्टार्ट ऑफ विथ यू नेहा.
Thanks, Anvisha. Firstly, thanks for having me here. It's a very nostalgic moment for me, I have to tell you, because after retirement, so my last tournament before retirement was the National Games in 2015 in Kerala, and now 10 years back, later I'm here again at the National Games. So thanks for having me. And you know, in these last 10 years, one of the biggest advancements, improvements for India has been sports science. And rightly fitting the topic, you know, for me, sports medicine, sports science is a combination of so many different aspects and teamwork from the right physiotherapists, nutritionists, fitness trainers, sports psychologists, mental trainers, sports medicine, doctors, and I'm very happy to see that in the last 7-8 years, through many organizations, through government support, many athletes are now able to get the team behind them, which was never there. So to give you an example, Anvisha, that in my entire career, I never had an access to a physiotherapist. Nutrition-wise, I consulted somebody, but the actual scientific way of how you train to be an elite athlete, it was never there. We did not know what is protein consumption, what foods would give you that. I was a vegetarian, and I had no information that things like, say, dal may not be the right protein source.
So relatable, I can tell you.
Yeah, and now I'm very happy to see that today's generation, we have so many young kids here, of course, participating here at the national games. We are able to provide these facilities to our athletes for them to be training at the elite and at the highest level in the scientific ways. So just to open it, that there's been a lot of change and good change that is happening in sports science in India.
Just building on what Neha said, Dr. Vakharia, she's asked me to call her Khyati, so I'll stick to Khyati perhaps. उन्होंने बहुत सारे components के बारे में बताया. Can you shed light on what actually makes up sports science in today's day and age in 2025? And especially if you could specify that in the context of the Indian sporting ecosystem.
So, sport, they say it takes a village to make an athlete, and rightly said, because you have to have a team that works together, that builds the athlete from the developing stage to the elite stage. There is much more responsibility during the developing years, and when you go to the elite stage, you have to have that team, and the entire team has to be in sync, and they have that one goal that everybody is chasing. And when you have the right team together with relation to a sports psychologist, a sports medicine doctor, the coach, the psychologist, the nutritionist, everybody coming together is the right way ahead, and that's what will get our sport at the right place.
When it comes to charting out the perfect season, a medal spree of sort comes about for the athlete, a dream season. What are the key ingredients to nailing that planning in your view, Neha?
See, I think first is one of the biggest struggles athlete faces understanding competition calendar. Which is, and these are things which is not in the hands of an athlete. And we always emphasize telling that think about what is in your control the controllables, and don't worry about the rest. So sometimes competition calendar is not in front of us, but we have to figure out that, say, whatever your targets are, if we're in 2025 and somebody's here preparing for 2028, right? 26 Asian Games will be your milestone event, and then you get into the qualifications for 2028. So we have to go from the depth of starting with, hey, what is my fitness looking like at the start of the season? Can I have like a good 2-month off-season camp where I can focus, go back to my basics, build my fitness in a way which will last me for the next 6 to 8 months. So I think the first is figuring out the right training days vis-a-vis how many tournaments that you have to compete and participate in. The second is, in cases where you have a team, right? Figuring out with your team that what are the various different aspects that need working on. To give you an example, if I'm a table tennis player and I'm really working on my speed, right? And I do know that my endurance has been generally good in the last year or so. And a lot of speed work is required. When there's a lot of speed work comes in, that also means chances of injuries in terms of the agility training that comes in between. I need to have my coach, the coach is giving the plan, the coach needs to be in sync, the physiotherapist needs to tell me what are the various different exercises before and after sessions I need to do. The nutritionist needs to assess my BMI, needs to assess various aspects where they can work on my speed, because the optimal body weight is required for me to achieve that sort of fitness level. So the nutritionist has to be in charge, right? And there are so many details that, I'm a big fan of nutrition in sports science, because it's crazy that how much hydration can make a difference. It's crazy how much intake of protein in terms of grams that that you need to take, and it can have the impact, makes a difference, which we never knew. So having these right people in the ecosystem is so critical for you to determine how your season's gonna come in. So I think if we can have a traveling team with our athletes, which, through Olympic Gold Quest, through the Sports Authority of India, we're now able to give, right? They're able to have all these experts in the national camps for the tournaments, camps before the tournaments where there are long, right? हम किसी foreign country में जा रहे हैं वहाँ खेलने के लिए, वहाँ पे पूरा ecosystem आपका different होगा. So if your team is traveling with you, which we sort of see as an aspirational thing, right? In tennis and in cricket and all these other sports, we are having it now within the Olympics and Paralympic sports is a good thing to do. So it's overall, it is going into deep planning on various little aspects based on what your goals are and basis the team that you have around you.
It's interesting, Neha, कि आपने mention किया nutrition कितना बड़ा role play करता है, and because मौली संवाद का आयोजन करने का एक बड़ा मकसद है कि आप में से बहुत सारे लड़के लड़कियां will go on to represent India in sport, right? एक हाथ उठा के दिखा सकते हैं, बोल सकते हैं कि कितने जन को पता है कि प्रोटीन खाना इम्पॉर्टेंट है अपने डाइट में. जब घर में खाना खाते हो प्रोटीन के बारे में बात होता है, किन किन को पता है? तो लगभग 200 बच्चे हैं इधर, उनमें से मोरलेस 30-40 किड्स नो कि प्रोटीन इज़ एन इम्पॉर्टेंट इंग्रेडिएंट इन योर रेगुलर डाइट. तो नेहा मैम ने जैसे बोला, आज घर जाके अपने पापा मम्मी को बोलेंगे, समझाएंगे कि मम्मी प्रोटीन क्या होता है, अंडा या फिर पनीर, नॉन वेजिटेरियन, वेजिटेरियन, इसके बारे में आज जाके बात करेंगे प्रोटीन के बारे में, ठीक है? Because not only will protein, as Neha mentioned, help you become better athletes, but better individuals, even if you do not play sport. And this is the reason we are hosting, the organizers at the Uttarakhand 2025 National Games are hosting this conclave, and आपको लाया गया है ताकि इन स्पेशलिस्ट से आप सीखो और घर जाके अपने फैमिलीज़ के साथ बात करो, ठीक है? करोगे ना?
I'll give you an example. Today for breakfast, there was a very nice upma in front of me. I had it, enjoyed it, and then I'm like, oh, protein intake to hua nahi, so I had 2 boiled eggs and made sure mera morning ka breakfast protein intake was done.
The athlete in you peaked out in the nick of time before you made way to the conclave, Neha. Thanks for that little interesting personal anecdote. ख्याति, मैं आपसे जानना चाहूँगी, नेहा eloquently described के planning के key ingredients क्या होने चाहिए. Now, if you think of the same scenario with regards to an injured athlete, and मैं injured athlete अगर मैं mention कर सकूँ, मुरली श्रीशंकर, Commonwealth Games medalist, Olympian, who was part of this conclave just 2 days ago, वो National Games पे थे, but बोल रहे थे कि मैम मेरा सारा time अभी जा रहा है rehab को लेके. How do these dynamics change when you're dealing with the same sort of planning of a calendar of a season with regards to an injured athlete, and where do specialists like MDs in sports science like yourself come into play?
So, first of all, I have huge respect for Murli Shankar, the kind of injury that he's gone through and the kind of comeback that he is making. If there's anything, I'm super proud of him. And an injured athlete, it's a very difficult phase for any athlete, especially to undergo surgery, and then it takes you almost a year to kind of get back to that level where you're competing again. So it's a very difficult time for an athlete, both mentally, physically. You know, it's almost as if like, you know, you're just learning to walk back again. Like, you know, it's right, you're back to being a baby, learning how to walk, learning how to climb the stairs again, climb down. So it is very challenging. And the mental strength that it takes to complete the whole process and get back to where you were is unimaginable. So really proud of him. And when we look at, we see a lot of injured athletes, we see a lot of ligament tears, they undergo surgery, they come back. And the whole journey is, you know, it's about you have that long-term goal that, okay, this is where I need to be. But then you can't just focus on that. You have to break that down. And, you know, sometimes athletes come to me and I'm just like, you know what? You know, just don't get overwhelmed by that big picture. Just take it day by day. Today you're able to walk, tomorrow you're able to jog. So kind of like just, you know, try to find that joy in getting better each day. So, and you know, there's, as I said, like, you know, there's not just a single road, like, okay, if there's an athlete that is injured and, you know, if X got to this position in this much amount of time or in this way, it will work for the other athlete. No, it doesn't. It is so individualized, just like training. Rehabilitating an athlete to get back to that level is a different journey for every athlete. And having a team with regards to, you know, like taking care of the nutrition during injury, most very important. Like even say you underwent surgery, आपका पैर brace में बंधा है, you are still going to move your ankle, you're still going to press, you're going to still do isometric exercises to stimulate that muscle just so that it doesn't become weak. How fast can you, you know, like as a doctor, it's like how fast can I get an athlete to start walking, even if it's just with crutches, but you know, just the movement, you know, the muscle stimulation, that becomes very important. So I would say like having a team of a sports medicine specialist, the physiotherapist, the strength and conditioning coach, the doctor, everybody comes together to make a plan for that athlete. And just because you plan, it doesn't mean it's going to go that way. But then if you don't plan, then you know you're ready to fail. So planning is the most important aspect of that.
I'd also, great points by Dr. Khyati. I'd also like to add to it that innovation is very important when it comes to rehab. I'll give you a small example. In 2013, I had a back injury, and that was due to inefficient load management. I was training hard. I think that day my muscles were very sore. If I had the right guidance, I should have technically taken it off. But I went there. I had to do box jumps. I did once, I did twice. The third time, I felt something in the back, and you know, I had a disc rupture, which I still go through now. You know, the after effects of it, and the rehab was not good. It took me 10 days to find a good doctor at that time who could really diagnose कि हुआ क्या है from the sports perspective. या हमने 2-3 बहुत अच्छे specialists को दिखाया, all said 4 महीना bed rest करना है आपको. I finally found the doctor, and this is after 10 days, right? And in life of an elite athlete, every single second is crucial. We have to work with speed and provide them the right support. When I finally worked with the doctor, you know, and he was so good. First, he gave me the first line of, you know, the recovery phase that is needed to be there, which was rest. After that, he got me back on the table. Yeah, he gave me the right rehab exercises for my back. And he told me, okay, I'm generally a very aggressive attacking player. He said that, why do you have to be totally away from your sport, right? Let's get you on the table. He belted me and he said, let's just practice defense. because that is also gonna, it's a critical element in your overall technical expertise, right, as an athlete. So let's not attack, let's not do something crazy, but can you stand and can you just practice your defense? And I did that, and that it was so innovative because it didn't really pull me away from the sport that I dearly love and just do rehab, which is super boring. So he kept me engaged, and the recovery was also quicker, and mentally also I felt very, I felt sane कि suddenly ऐसा नहीं लगा कि ओ हमारी life से जो हमारा sport है वो ही छिन गया है, now you have to, you know, build your body back to it. So such sports doctors are so important to have, who can innovate as well and keep you alive.
Yeah, so adding to that, it's a very good point. And, whenever we have an athlete coming to us, very rarely do I ever say that you need to rest it out. You know, I still give them options. I'm like, you can't run, get onto the stationary cycle. You know, do the same running workout on the stationary cycle so that your biochemistry of your body that you've worked so hard to build is still there. You're not losing everything, and then, okay, that by the time you're back from rehab, and then now, okay, now let's build back my endurance, let's build back. So it's about the innovation. It's about how you can still get work done. There's a lot of innovation. There is something called as blood flow restriction training. So say an athlete has undergone surgery, the muscles are wasted. So there is a blood flow restriction where you have to give lesser amount of load, but you still get greater results. So these things become very important for an athlete. So gone are those days where it's just like, okay, you rest out for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. No. For me, it's like, you had surgery, what can I do the next day to get you back?
It's fascinating that both Neha and Dr. Khyati have placed a lot of emphasis on the joy aspect of taking care of an athlete and planning their season. There is an adage that goes, comparison is the thief of joy, right? So if I can apply that to an athlete's rehab process, a rehab session or rehab prolonged period could be the thief of joy for that particular athlete. So we are talking about the mental health aspect of an athlete's well-being. Where does this come into play? Where does this figure in terms of not only charting out or planning an athlete's season, but also the holistic approach to sports science in India, Neha?
Oh, mental health is super critical. I think there are two different aspects that psychologists are working on. One is just your regular stress management, pressure. Yeah, haath kaapta hai. I was 18 when I played the Olympics, and I remember it was table tennis happening in China. It's like cricket happening in India, right? And 10,000 people in the stadium, and nobody generally at that time came to watch table tennis. I was not used to a big stadium filled with people, and here I am suddenly exposed to such big crowd. And as I stepped on the court, my hands were shivering. I could feel the pressure. My heart rate was very high. I could feel it that my legs are not moving well. I was not making the right decisions. So one aspect is to have your athletes ready for the big stage, and a lot of it is the work that the psychologists do at the back in getting them ready to face that sort of a pressure. But you know, it is a combination of also solid preparation, right? Today, if I go tell that kid कि नहीं आपका match है, आपको believe करना है, and आप जीतोगे, आपको believe करना है, that kid will be like, okay, fine, but अंदर से आता है belief, right? That belief comes when there is solid preparation. And today, if we have the team behind the athletes to give them the solid preparation, they will believe in themselves. And you've been covering sports since a long time. I'm sure you've seen the change, right? Today, when our athletes step on the court, step in the ground, they go to win and not to participate like how, say, I did back in 2008 at the Beijing Olympics. And that is a factor of good preparation with the solid team. So psychology is one aspect. The second is performance enhancement. Psychologists are able to tell you techniques, how to think, what are the triggers that you need at the 9-all, 10-all situation. What are the things that you can do to start the game at a high note. I was speaking to somebody yesterday. She said that we do a lot of physical warm-up, but we don't really think about the mental warm-up that is needed. And I thought that was so fantastic that we can do. The only thing is that I think the education that is needed for young professionals to become good sports psychologists is what is missing in India. And I think if we can invest much more in building the crop of good sports psychologists, and it not only is about psychology, good sports medicine doctors, good physiotherapists, nutritionists, SNC trainers, I think that is still lacking in India, because a lot of them still have to go abroad and get the degree certifications and then get some experience and then come on ground. So that is one area where we can majorly improve to give and build the next generation of, say, how we're building the athletes, build the next generation of sports science experts, along with, of course, the coaches' education that is happening in India.
Excellent point, Neha, and it sort of segues into a question that has sort of risen in my head for a fairly long time. Does an individual who holds a certified degree in sports medicine, you are an MD, she is also a former national level pole vault champion, do you on a regular basis come to interact with your mental health counterparts within the sports medicine ecosystem? Is there a transference of knowledge, sharing of notes? If you're dealing with a particular client, aka an athlete, do you share your notes from a sports medicine perspective with the mental health professionals who are also employed for the job?
I do, but I still feel like there is a dearth of sports psychologists in our country, and I wouldn't find them everywhere. So it's kind of like I have to find somebody who connects in the same way that I do with a particular athlete, and kind of like we can have that knowledge sharing and get the best out for that athlete. So I have a few people, but it's still just a handful of people, less than a handful of people. But we need more sports psychologists. We need more the people who can train the mental coaches who can transfer that, because say when an athlete comes to me, is injured, say I don't have somebody who can look into that aspect, then for me it becomes overwhelming, because I cannot not listen to the athlete, and the athlete has so much emotion especially when they're undergoing injuries. It's a very tough time for them, and if they aren't able to get a let out, then it's very difficult for them to move forward. So when I have to take that on myself and kind of like counsel them, it's difficult because I'm not fully professionally trained for that. And I wish that there are more people who take up sports psychology, sports nutrition. They just, you can make so much difference, because we need so many teams that come together for the number of athletes that we have in our country.
मतलब वो मेडल जो मिलता है ना एक एथलीट को, वो मेडल सिर्फ उनका नहीं होता है, एंड द एथलीट्स देमसेल्व्स एक्नॉलेज कि उस मेडल को हासिल करने में पूरा एक विलेज, एक इकोसिस्टम, बहुत सारे लोगों की कंट्रीब्यूशन होती है. आई एम ऑल्सो इंटरेस्टेड, and I would strongly encourage both my panelists to shed light on what is going to be a couple of very personal questions. Aside from the fact that हम तीनों सूट में ड्रेस अप करके आए हैं, we also happen to be women, right? And when we're talking about sports science, so far we've only spoken about the athlete in a very gender neutral sense. But hey, I'm speaking with two women who have been athletes and now are preparing the next generation of athletes through the confluence of ideas, administration, sports science. How different is it, or is there a need for India to approach the art of sports science, the science of sports science, differently with regards to women athletes and male athletes, especially considering all the physiological changes we go through every month by dint of a simple phenomenon that is called menstruation? periods होता है तो our hormones go for a toss. फिजियोलॉजिकली, फिजिकली वीकनेस से लेके बहुत कुछ होती है. सो ये कॉन्वर्सेशन होना कितना ज़रूरी है, और आपके एक्सपीरियंस में इज़ इंडिया मेकिंग दैट डिफ्रेंसिएशन बिटवीन tendering sports science to its male and female athletes separately?
A few people are, a few coaches are. I feel like the first contact of any athlete is the coach, and everything starts from there. So for me, the bigger part is to educate the athlete, but also to educate the coach that, you know, look, you have a male athlete, you have a female athlete, they're very different. And the way you're going to train a male athlete versus how you're going to train a female athlete, and any coach will tell you that, you know, I'm good with training the male athletes, I don't know, somehow my female athletes don't do well. Or some coaches are like, my female athletes do very well, and somehow my male athletes are just not there, you know. So it's very different from the mental perspective. The kind of feedback a female athlete requires versus a male athlete requires is completely different. How you tell them things is completely different. How they internalize things is very different. From the physiological point of view, their bodies are completely different. The hormones are different. So in the females, you have a particular cycle. So, and even that cycle for every female is so different. So how do you know, this is the right time to load this athlete? You know, she's not going to be her best self at this point of the cycle. So to kind of manage those things in a female athletes, even injuries, the kind of injuries a male athlete gets versus a female athlete gets is completely different. So considering the individuality of the athlete, considering the sex of the athlete, it is very important from treating the athlete, from training the athlete, and to peaking the athlete.
And as Dr. Khyati rightly mentioned, FIFA has conducted studies on its male footballers and female footballers. The number of ACL injuries that you see in women's soccer players is unthinkable. The top guns have been totally downed ahead of crucial tournaments, including during the World Cup, through ACL injuries out of the blue. Comparatively, it's not so much the case in male athletes, in male footballers. Neha, your thoughts on this separation and the need for India to perhaps rethink and try and accommodate more skilled professionals who are more gender aware in them, the way they cater towards their clients?
You know, I think we first still need to go back to basics. I think just the conversation, and thank you for bringing it up, just the conversation on menstruation, on periods, is uncomfortable. Using the word period is uncomfortable. As an athlete, for me to tell my coach that, sir, I got my periods today, I'm not feeling too well, I'm very, very tired, can I take an off, is uncomfortable. I've trained with a few foreign coaches, and I remember coaches would just not understand there aren't any female coaches. The male coaches would say they're so uncomfortable using the word period, is they say ladies' problem. That's what I grew up my entire career. Ladies' problem hai, and then they would get annoyed. So it's very confusing for a young female athlete growing up, that what is she supposed to do, right? And there have been days where I have shied away from telling this. And I remember once we had a long distance running session, and I was on my first day of my period. I could not tell him, and I ran for like 1.5 hours. I finished that session. At the end of the day, I felt mentally very strong that on my period I could run 1.5 hours. But I'm not too sure what it did to my body for the long run. Yeah, the research, FIFA's conducted. There is some in the US. There is an organization called Simply Sports now who's doing really good work for menstrual health of athletes, women athletes. But deep, if you go to the grassroots level, we're still not accepting and we're still not just comfortable having these conversations. So I think the number one thing is to spread awareness, have more of these conversations, tell not only the athletes, but more importantly, like Dr. Khyati said, the coaches, because coaches are the one who need to make then the athlete feel comfortable, that it's okay to take it off and alter your training sessions accordingly. Second is that sometimes coaches, once they accept and they know and they tell you that, okay, can you take the pill to delay your periods? It is not the right thing. We have to have the right scientific intervention to ensure that our women athletes are able to train and perform optimally on their period. Yeah, delaying period is not the answer. So taking the pill and avoiding is not the answer, because your hormones will go haywire and you don't know in the long run what is it doing to your system. So as an athlete at that time, you just do what it feels right, what your coach feels says right, but we're not very sure what is happening to our bodies at that time. It's so good to now know that in the various phases of your cycle, you should train in different ways. Like during your ovulation and that period, you should do good weight training. That's where your, your muscles are building, right? What is the nutrition that is needed, right? Little bit that I've learned, magnesium is critical, right before your period starts, and what is needed during the period, after it. And I'm so happy to share that some of the top nutritionists in the country are working with our top athletes, and very simple things like just noting and tracking your periods has started. Yeah, we're tracking the periods, so at least we know, okay, competition calendar is there. I'm aware and I'm prepared that I'll be probably on my period at that day, and I'm then informing the coach as well, and I'm preparing accordingly. So period tracking has started. Through the right nutritional intervention, we are able to supplement the athletes according to their cycles. The third is convincing the coaches that we do not need to take pills to delay the periods. In weight-based sports, it is critical to, of course, maintain your weight, because that's the category you play in. We are able to inform the athletes now that at this cycle your 1 or 2 kg weight gain hoega, but eventually the next week or in 10 days wo settle ho jayega. This is a normal thing, right? It keeps the athlete sane in weight-based sports like boxing, wrestling, weightlifting. So at OGQ as well, a lot of intervention is happening for menstrual hygiene of athletes, and but I still think we currently support 400 athletes, and it is them, but we need to spread to so many more. And I tell you, at the grassroots, that's where the the age is where you need the most support, right? Your 12-13-year-olds, when they get their first period, dropout rates at the highest at that level, because we don't know how to even take care of ourselves. So to give you an example, one of the biggest struggles I faced in my playing career was disposing. I did not, because the washrooms weren't clean, there weren't a proper dustbin, there weren't just simple infrastructure that made, they weren't, in washrooms, soaps were not there. So as a female athlete, if we want access, if we want female athletes to continue playing for the long run, we need to also build our infrastructure and have the right access for them to feel comfortable. And those are the little things which, are our starting points. Once we achieve that, then we can go to training differently for different genders. Yeah, I think we are very far away from that. But the good thing is change has started, which we are already seeing at least at the elite, mid to elite level. But that trickle-down effect still needs to come in at the grassroots level.
I'd request the audience to just give a big round of applause for the depth and range of experiences you shared, Neha. It's never easy. But the fact that you've been an elite athlete yourself is what makes your presence on this panel so very important, just as it is the case for Dr. Khyati as well. As we move towards the end of this conversation, I would possibly just want to ask one fundamental question which should summarize everything that you've said. India is in the process to bid for the 2036 Olympics. Regardless of that, India also wants to host the 2030 Youth Olympics. India wants to get itself in the top 10 of the medal tally at the Olympic Games, double digits, right? So we have a lot of aspirations as a sporting nation. Ours is one of the world's most young populations out there, the greatest population in terms of numbers, the fourth largest economy. So much is going in favor of India. But hey, we need to marry sports with science, scientific innovation, scientific excellence, professionalism. If the former athletes in you who are now holding key positions of influence could suggest 2 key recommendations to ensure there's a more holistic collaboration between Indian sport and sports science, what would those 2 recommendations be? First up, Khyati.
As a doctor, the doctor in me would say, when we have a youth athlete, please come in for a wellness visit. You don't have to come to a sports medicine specialist only when you're injured. Come in, just have a conversation. And I hold the youth athletes very close to my heart because our future Olympians are going to come from there. So for me, it's like, can I have that one-on-one conversation just to educate them, just to give them those small things that, you know, look, hey, आपका बच्चा जो है 12 साल तक आप उसको skill based training कराइए, आप उसको expose them to varied number of sports, have them have so many skills in their toolbox that when they are at the senior level, they have all the skills, their bodies are matured, and they are ready to compete at the highest level. For me, this is the closest to my heart because as a kid, I grew up playing multiple sports. And I got into athletics, which is comparatively, it's a late peaking sport. And for me, I feel like I did very well in athletics in a short span of time because as a kid, my mother exposed me to a varied number of sports. So number 1, please do not hesitate to come in for a wellness visit. You will only get something back from us. 2, preserve the youth athletes of today so that the dropout rate is less and so that they learn the skill, they fall in love with the sport, and that's what makes them continue rather than just, you know, training them and like, you know, going all pistons and making them reach burnout very quickly. So my youth athletes, that's where my heart is, yeah.
Excellent points, critical points. I hope the ecosystem, all the key movers and shakers of our industry are listening. Over to you, Neha.
I think the number 1, which I've emphasized during this entire session, is building the team behind the athlete. That's the most critical. I did not have one, and today we have access to such good sports science experts in the country. We need to build more of them, and we need to give the right access to the athlete for the right tournaments, which means good planning, good execution. So that is the number 1, and the team includes, you know, your all the various elements that are needed. It doesn't really need that, say, your physios need to travel with the team, your sports science, the conditioning coach needs to travel, your psychologist also needs to travel. So giving that access to the team is critical. So the team. The second I would say is for the athletes, for the coaches, and for all these people in the ecosystem to be coachable and adaptable, right? I think one of the biggest challenges we face as sports science is improving in India. We all know that we need it, but there's a lot of, say, resistance from coaches to let the physio do their work, let the nutritionist do their work, and understand that we are a team. And from the athletes, right, trust your what your psychologist is telling you. Trust in what your SNC trainer, they may make you do a lot of boring work, which is working on your finer inner muscles, but it gives you a better warm-up, right? Why is the TheraBand exercise important? And sometimes athletes are not really ready to soak it in and implement it. So for athletes and coaches to really adapt and be open to let the sports science interventions happen and do its magic. So when we have the team, and if we don't have that sort of mindset, what will the team do? So it's a collaborative effort which needs to be executed with the right mindset. And I think if we can do it, we can have fitter athletes, we can reduce injuries, we can work on load management, we can work on the menstrual health of our female athletes, which will only get our athletes, one is in terms of the physicality, be one of the best in the world. I'm not too sure how much should we say, oh, genes hi nahi hai hamare paas. I think we should stop saying that now. We have to build it. And the second is longevity of our athletes. That will ensure, we're seeing in other sports, in other countries, there are athletes who are able to, play at an elite level in their 30s as well. So how can we build that? And I think if we can have these two, we will be able to get that going in India as well.
Astute, important points mentioned by both Neha and Dr. Khyati. Important words. अगर ऑडियंस में से किसी के पास भी कोई सवाल है हमारे पैनलिस्ट्स से, प्लीज़ पूछिए, हाथ उठाइए, माइक आपके पास पहुंच जाएगा. Any questions from the young audience that we have in the room? किसी को सवाल पूछनी है? Olympian table tennis player है, pole vault champion है. Yes, ma'am, go ahead. The young lady right there. Can we pass on the mic to her, please? Can you raise your hand once again? पहले तो उनके लिए तालियां बजाइए, क्योंकि साहस दिखा के वो आप सभी लोगों में से हाथ उठा के she is asking a question. Go ahead, young lady.
Hello, ma'am. How are you?
I'm very well, ma'am. How about yourself? What's your good name?
My name is Vidushi. I'm in 11th class.
Excellent. Which school are you from? And please ask your question.
I'm from Jamdagni Public School. So I want to ask question from Dr. Khyati, ma'am. As you are a doctor and we are PCB students here, so what would you like to suggest us for our future? Any suggestions and advice for us? Not regarding sports, but in any medical field.
So this is a very good question. I would say, अगर आपने स्पोर्ट्स खेला है, अगर आपको स्पोर्ट्स पसंद है, तो you should definitely look into the various different aspects of sports science. If you're interested in becoming a doctor and still working with sport, then you can take up sports medicine. With regards to becoming coaches, physical education teachers, sports science, or doctors who work closely with athletes, these are all your options, and you should never put any limitations on yourself. Whatever you feel is what interests you, that's the direction to go with regards to sport. But with regards to anything else, what talent you have may be different from the girl next to you. So your story, your journey is very different from hers. So I would say follow your heart, see where your heart is, and make a career out of that.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Can I ask one more question?
Yes, please.
Ma'am, from Neha, ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
As you are a tennis player, so I want to ask that, for example, if you had any injury, so there's a time that some people get demotivated. So as a student, we also get demotivated and we find reasons for not studying and another thing. So what would you like to suggest us?
See, I think life will be full of challenges. Yeah, it will never be a rosy picture. I think when you feel demotivated, and we all feel demotivated by the way, like there are many days when I'm like, I don't want to wake up, I don't want to go to work. There are many days when I felt I don't want to practice today. But when I feel that, I just think back to what I do and why I do and why it brings me joy. You know, whenever I didn't want to go for a training session, I always went back and thought that why does sport bring me so joy? Why do I like it? And that passion that ignites you brings you alive. So demotivation will always be there. I think in those times, go back to your core that हमें क्यों पढ़ना है, क्योंकि हमें आगे लिख के पढ़ के हमें बड़ा बनना है और हमें अपने पेरेंट्स का नाम रोशन करना है और दुनिया में इम्पैक्ट लाना है. आपके जैसे यंग गर्ल्स आज अगर आप देखोगे लड़कियां चांद पे पहुंच गई हैं, लड़कियां डॉक्टर्स हैं, लड़कियां मेडल्स जीत रही हैं यहाँ पे. हमें ओवरऑल ये सोचना है जब हम डिमोटिवेटेड फील होते हैं कि हमारे एम्स क्या हैं. अगर हम वो सोचेंगे आप में ऑटोमेटिकली वो फायर आ जाएगा कि नहीं यार मुझे करना है, मुझे मार्क्स अच्छे लाने हैं और मुझे आगे सफलता हासिल करनी ही है. आई वुड ऑल्सो से कि हमेशा देखो कि आप कितने ग्रेटफुल हो. अगर आप अपने पेरेंट्स की को ग्रेटफुल मानोगे, अपने टीचर्स को कि आपको एजुकेशन मिल रही है, आप कॉन्क्लेव में आके आप एथलीट से मिल पा रहे हो, आपको ये सब एक्सपोजर मिल पा रहा है. आई थिंक इट विल ऑल्सो ब्रिंग इन कि क्योंकि आपको ये फैसिलिटीज़ मिली हैं आप उनका अच्छा यूज़ करो, क्योंकि हर जने को ये फैसिलिटीज़ भी नहीं मिलती है. तो आई रियली होप कि आप अपना पैशन की तरफ काम कर सको और जब भी निराशा होए ले लो, उसको एब्जॉर्ब करो, लेकिन बाउंस बैक अच्छे से करो. थैंक यू.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, may I have a request, please? Can I have a photo with you all?
Absolutely, lady. And don't worry, I was about to call you on stage, which I will do with, according you, with all due respect, because she took the initiative. आपने साहस दिखा के आपने सवाल पूछा, दो बहुत बढ़िया सवाल पूछा उन्होंने. So well done to you, young lady. And we couldn't have ended this conversation on a more poetic, better or a more beautiful note. So thank you once again to Neha Agarwal and Dr. Khyati Vakharia. And young lady, it's your time to get the spotlight that you have earned for yourself. If I could request her to come on stage and our colleagues for the felicitation ceremony, please. Very well done. सवाल पूछना चाहिए और यही है जिसके कारण मौली संवाद आपके देवभूमि में पहली बार नेशनल गेम्स के इतिहास में आयोजन किया जा रहा है, ताकि आप लोग इन सारे सेशन से कुछ सीख लेके घर जाइए, बच्चियां सब. And along with the young lady, can I get your name once again, please? Vidushi, could I also request Colonel Gupta from the Indian Army, who's been one of the esteemed members and one of the most attentive, dedicated members in the audience, to come on stage? First up, I would request Colonel Gupta to felicitate Neha, please. A big round of applause. तालियों के साथ हम मिस नेहा अग्रवाल शर्मा को सम्मानित कर रहे हैं, कर्नल गुप्ता from the Indian Army. And as promised, young Vidushi will felicitate Dr. Khyati Vakharia. We are grateful that you are here today, Vidushi. Young Vidushi felicitating Dr. Khyati Vakharia. And this is why the National Sports Vision Conclave is being organized. The transference of inspiration from us millennials, from former athletes who are now administrators, like in the likes of Colonel Gupta, Neha Agarwal and Dr. Khyati Vakharia, inspiring Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Beta, कुछ भी बोल दो यार, ऐसी चीज़ है ना देवभूमि पे ही होता है. So well done to the Uttarakhand government for making this conclave happen, and a big thank you to Colonel Gupta, Neha, Vidushi and Dr. Khyati Vakharia. Let's all pose for a photograph please, and thank you for sharing your thoughts throughout the course of the conversation. थैंक यू विदुषी, वेल डन. आपका स्कूल का नाम एक बार फिर से जोर से बता दीजिए.
जमदग्नि पब्लिक स्कूल.
जमदग्नि पब्लिक स्कूल के लिए एक बार जोरदार तालियां हो जाए. और ये मैं सेफली बोल सकती हूँ कि इस सेशन में डेफिनेटली लड़कियां लड़कों को मात दे गई. तो नेक्स्ट सेशन में मैं चाहूँगी कि जितने सारे लड़के हैं अपना सॉक्स को पुल अप कीजिए, कुछ दिखाइए, सवाल पूछिए, क्योंकि हमारे पैनलिस्ट आपके सवाल देने के लिए ही आए हैं. ठीक है, वेल डन गर्ल्स एंड बॉयज, थैंक यू फॉर कीपिंग अस कंपनी इन व्हाट वाज द ओपनिंग सेशन. वी विल बी बैक with the live stream of the second session of the day, and it's going to be a big one, an important one, featuring the likes of Shri Amit Sinha, IPS and CEO of the 38th National Games, Neha Agarwal, and a few other luminaries, the key movers and shakers of the Indian sporting ecosystem. And we will be discussing alongside our collaborators from Be Safe, the menstrual hygiene company, discussing, guess what, periods, menstruation, and why it is important for India to talk more about periods and menstruation, and how the country looks at catering to this particular need of its female athletes. Thank you very much once again, and we'll see you in a few minutes' time.